Welcome to the Bucket Plan on Demand, a podcast for financial advisors based on the best-selling book and process that simplifies financial planning. Hear from skilled industry professionals and special guests each episode that will help perfect your approach with clients and your results.
Welcome to Coffee Break. I'm Kirsten Schlumbohm, Vice President and Head of Annuity Sales. I'm excited to have our next guest on. I don't only view her as one of our advisors, but I do think of her as a friend. We've shared some memories together. So welcome, Grace Nicholson. She is the founder of Akamai Advisors, where she is passionate about helping clients, especially women, achieve financial independence through personalized retirement planning, tax-efficient income strategies, and long-term care solutions. With years of experience in the insurance and financial services industry, Grace is known for her ability to simplify complex concepts and build lasting relationships based on trust, and she brings a lot of flavor and grace to the role. No pun intended, 100% pun intended. So Grace, welcome to Coffee Break.
Thank you so much, Kirsten.
Well, let's get into this. Let's talk about retaining women clients through life transitions. Help us understand, Grace, why do life transitions such as divorce, widowhood, or career shifts pose such a high risk for advisors losing women clients?
Yeah, it's a really big risk because there's a lot of money transferring. And I don't know about you, but like a lot of my clients who are women are not on their first marriage. Sometimes a husband or two have passed away and they're still there. And so wealth is transferring hands. Like $125 trillion in assets is expected to shift during this generational life transition. So with that said, a lot of professionals like us, advisors, don't work with spouses equally. And that can be a problem, because a lot of women that I meet who are going through these transitions want to switch their seat on the bus. And it might be the first time in their life that they're in the driver's seat of their financial life. And, that takes a lot of dedication as an advisor to guide her through and educate her and make sure she's understanding because it is a big shift and they want to know that we're there for them.
It's an emotional shift, and can be very challenging because, grief is fickle. You can be fine one day and the next day it hurts you in a way that you didn't expect it to. So when women fire their financial advisors after a spouse is passing or a divorce, they do it because they don't feel understood. And not really just women. 57.9% of millennials have changed advisors or hired one for the first time after receiving a significant inheritance. In practice, what are some specific actions advisors can take? And it doesn't matter if it's a male advisor or a female advisor. What can we do? And what actions can we take in those first 90 days to demonstrate empathy, expertise, and building long-lasting trust?
Great question. I think it's important for all advisors to be talking to the kids when they're part of the picture and the parents, our clients are comfortable with that. I really enjoy those conversations, getting them involved and talking about, not just what they have, but why we put this together the way that we did. And going through the bucket plan, it's really solidified some relationships. I think, from the risk of the kids moving it, even, when the parents maybe start needing some extra help with their finances and things, you don't want to lose those accounts just because the kids don't know you or aren't comfortable with, why things are set up the way they are. I just had a client meeting like this recently where I've been working with the client for 10 years and now, the husband's passed away and the son is taking care of things for mom. And he was a little skeptical. Why does she have this annuity, right? This isn't a whole lot of growth here. I'd rather it be over here where this is making this money. And it's like the children, adult children, don't think and have the same mentality that their parents do. So you kind of have to help them step in their shoes, understand where they're at. And when they understand the why you did this and how it's in their best interest, I think that those relationships are a lot more solid and can withstand that transition.
You're coaching the new coach because you sat down with mom and dad or just mom to create this phenomenal plan to meet her goals, to get her to where she needs to be. And when the son's taking over, he's in a different season of life. He might be in more of an accumulation phase where she's in and just finished the preservation phase, moving to distribution. So it's providing a clear roadmap with small, manageable steps that help you not only help your client, but that next generation. So, how can advisors start building trust with female clients before transition occurs? Because sometimes, as an advisor, you learn things before other people do because you're a trusted advisor, and that's not just with their money, it's with their emotional safety as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think, one of the things I think of first is host events for women that are specific for women. That's a great way to build trust within the network of women that you already know, and then expanding to more great women just like them, right? Women are excellent connectors. We are the original social marketers. Before there was social media, it was all about these social circles and women, spreading the word. So just get involved. And if you're a male advisor and that feels hard, get the women in your office involved, because they'll enjoy the involvement and can help to bridge that gap sometimes, with that personal relationship inside the office. Another thing that comes to mind is just really show care, because it matters, especially in those times of transition. I just took 2 calls in the past week from ladies whose husbands have passed away. And already on the calendar, like, we've got appointments with their kids for the one that wants to have her kids really help because her husband was in the driver's seat and she's not ready to be in the driver's seat yet. And so that's an important question too, is like, how involved do you want your family right now? So, just getting them on board, I think, helps build trust and establish the relationship. And then you're already meeting with the kids and helping with that generational gap as well.
Now, you mentioned events, and this is an unscripted question. Do you want to share? You do a phenomenal job of hosting events for women. Can you give us a couple of examples for our advisors listening of what they can do? Like, just a brief overview, because it's not rocket science. It's hosting something that's relatable and enjoyable to build that trust.
Yeah, it's really just about, social connection for women, I think, and meaningful connection. The events change, just like a room full of men only is going to have a different energy than a room of mixed males and females. It's going to be a different energy to have a room full of females and having a space that feels it's for them, right? Because a lot of spaces haven't been for us, in history, in the world. And so to have those spaces where we're feeling important and we're honoring each other and celebrating, because if you think about it, a lot of these women that we work with are moms, grandmas, running businesses, maybe working full time and managing the house, too. And so we have to celebrate each other and find, ways to have fun. So to answer your question about specific events, recently, Bethany is new on my team, and she is a phenomenal coordinator. She's like, owns a yoga studio, is really passionate about, healthy, wealthy lifestyles. And so she connected me with her physical therapist friend because they're in this health related world. And between their, social networks, we're hosting these events that are just kind of fun, right? We're educating about women's needs, financial concerns that affect women primarily and specifically, and then just finding ways to connect and, have mimosas on a Saturday morning or, just enjoy each other's company. It's been really fun to set these things up and get people in the office involved, but also, make these new connections with so many great women. Things that I've kind of gathered from the women's group that we're in with C2P, and tried on my own is like things to do with flowers and gardening, right? Planting, seeds, tending flowers, making beautiful arrangements, just doing activities together.
It's building the trust through activities and meeting the ladies where they are. And gentlemen, jump in with your questions too, because we also know that you're servicing a lot of female clients and dealing with this. And Mike, you just asked a really great question that does pull us into our next set of questions. Mike asked, what typically is a hot button for divorcees and widows when it comes to financial planning? Grace, can you shed some light on that? Because I think it does pull us into our next question about education.
Yes, absolutely. I think that a lot of women who go through a loss, whether it's a divorce or losing their spouse or anyone in their family, it really kind of brings this feeling of needing security and protection. And so they tend to be sometimes more conservative, wanting to focus on never being a burden to their kids or their grandkids, and if anything, being able to help them more than they're concerned about all the dollars and cents and the highest returns and taking a lot of risk. That's been my experience, helping a lot of these ladies through significant loss. Um, Also, just, wanting to make sure that they feel like they know what they're doing instead of just being kind of being blind through it, which some people are, especially, where I live. There's a kind of, it's like a patriarchal culture with the religion that's dominant in Utah. And so a lot of women don't, participate in the finances until they get divorced or until their spouse passes away. And this can pose a real significant opportunity and need to educate and validate them as well. So I use the tools that C2P gives us, like the pyramid of risk and definitely the concerns and priorities worksheet. That's where I tend to find a lot of those similarities on their biggest hot buttons.
And when you're talking about education, women want to be educated. They want to be part of the planning process, whether it's a single woman never married, a divorcee, or a widower. How do you, I know you mentioned the pyramid of risk and the questionnaire. How do you help educate women? What are you finding speaks the language of women to help them feel comfortable and confident as you're going through this process?
I think that the connection questionnaire sets us up perfectly for just having a really nice conversation that you can have with anyone at any level of understanding. And then through that, you really find out if they have much knowledge about what they have and how it works. And, from there, we can, determine how much we're going to talk here and how much we're going to talk here. And, we never want to talk below people or too far above people. We really need to meet them where they're at. So I think that you find that out quickly in the conversation and the connection questionnaire. And then I just straight up ask them, how comfortable are you with these different types of investments? There's no silly questions. These are all valid. So, is there anything that you want me to explain to you or help you understand, how this fits into your overall picture?
I love it. I mean, you're meeting your client where they are. A lot of times, advisors may default to discussing portfolio performance, but that might not address a newly divorced or widowed client's needs. What financial blind spots do you see women in transition struggling with most? And how can we proactively fill those gaps? Because let's be candid, sometimes the vulnerable conversations are difficult for not only the client, but the advisor. So, how can we do a better job of showing empathy and vulnerability?
Again, another great question. We really need to be there for people. So when they're going through these transitions, tell them, I am here for you. We are here for you. I recently, just had a meeting with a lady who lost her husband a couple months ago. So it's not something that you do right as they're grieving the loss, but you want to let them know, I know that your life has really changed. And so I want to adapt to that if we need to. Let's do, a new concerns and priorities questionnaire. Or a new VTA, right? Like, let's redo some of your tools so I can get a better understanding of where you are now as you've faced this hardship or this change in your life, because a lot changes. A lot changes. Sometimes they want to move across the country and be closer to a kid that's not in state. There's so many different variables when someone's no longer in the picture that maybe has been for 10 or 20 or 40 years of your life.
Well, we talk about it in Tax Management Journey. What happens when one of the spouses pass away? Taxes go up, income goes down. It's an opportunity for you to really readdress what their expenses are. What now in this new season of life? what do they want to accomplish? Maybe they do live in California, but they want to move to North Carolina where their kids are, so they have family close by. So you've got to adjust sales with them, but you've got to have that conversation to understand the new normal that they're experiencing.
Yeah, before you get into the performance, right? Just
Right.
check in, see if anything's changed. Because if you find out in that first meeting after a loss that the last thing on their mind is the performance, maybe don't lead with that, right? Like it matters to us and we want to review that, but it's really about them and their priorities. And like you said, a lot of it is about protection after an event like that and
And
feeling
there's a lot,
secure.
and there's some service work as well, because when you think about your life insurance, my spouse is my beneficiary. So what happens if I don't change that? Everything goes to probate. So you've got to take a look and do some insurance reviews and policy reviews to make sure things get updated. So heaven forbid something happens to your client, and then what they wanted to leave as a legacy kind of gets blown up because we didn't change that. So there's so many different pieces. Um, Speaking of like after a spouse passes away, many women may fire their advisors because they don't feel understood. In practice, what are some specific actions advisors can take in those first 90 days to demonstrate empathy, expertise, and building lasting trust?
Touch points, right? They want to be checked in on. There's a lot of people asking, what can I do? What can I do when someone goes through something? But if you can just be there and say, here's what I can do, it's a really different question than can you think while you're going through a hard time, can you think of something that I can help you with? It's a different conversation to say, here's what I'm going to take care of for you and make this easier for you because I'm here for you. And, make sure that they know that your team is available for them and that we're never too busy to help you and we're never too busy to help your family because that's, I think, when they're going through the loss, they really explain to their friends and family who is there for them and showing up the most. And I've had some calls from some women in the past couple months as I've helped a specific client through a really hard divorce that's, a 38-year marriage dissolved. And people have called me and said, you get such great reviews from our friend who's going through such a hard time. We want to get to know you. And so I think that that's really it's just like if you lead with your heart and you share your aloha to people without expectation, right? It will come back to you. That's really the law of attraction.
I do love the fact that your Maui heritage is coming out with the aloha. That was wonderful. One thing I'm gonna kind of go off track and just bring something up based on my experience here at C2P. One of our most underutilized tools, I feel like, is the Family Estate Organizer. This is a phenomenal tool that we have. It's out on our Talent LMS or on our learning platform. Excuse me, I use internal terms. But by having this put together with your client, it helps them help their spouse in case something happens too soon, or their children when leaving a legacy. So everything is in one space. Um, Grace, have you had a chance to use the Family Estate Organizer? And
Yeah. And I find that women especially love it, right? And not to, target them specifically. A lot of men love this too. But I find that women like need that space, that organized place where everything is, especially if they haven't been in the driver's seat of the finances to maybe know how to log into everything. So I made that last section, I think it's 15, for all their passwords and secure stuff so that they can share with, the people in their family that they want to. And everyone feels like they're in the loop if something happens, but then they can always call me and I can help kind of guide through that roadmap that we've built them.
Fabulous. It is such a great tool. And speaking from experience in dealing with family crisis, it comes in so handy when you
Oh,
don't,
yeah.
you lose somebody or they like parents have dementia. You don't know what logins are or what they have, but that binder is a lifesaver, not only for the surviving spouse, but for the family going through it.
Even making notes for them, like, if this happens, here's what they're going to need, right? Like life insurance needs certified death certificates where some other companies don't need certified certificates. So I think it's invaluable, that tool, and just communicating what needs to happen right away, how they can get help most efficiently.
Yeah. And if you haven't, taking advantage of using the family estate organizer. It is on our training platform. I know Carl has done a lot of work and using it. Some of our other more seasoned advisors who've been with us use it. Check that training out and take some of those morsels and add it into your planning process. So, Grace, when life transitions happen, emotions often drive decisions. I mean, people, like, if you're coming from a place of scarcity, you're coming from a place of hurt, you might make a decision that's not necessarily in your long-term best interest. How can advisors adjust their communication style to both acknowledge the human side and keep clients focused in their long-term financial well-being?
Great question, because people can make quick decisions that sometimes are not the smartest when they are in transition. And it doesn't matter what kind of transition, you might not be all there through some things. And so I think it's important to acknowledge, like I said before, about where they're at today versus where they were maybe the last time you did their VTA or their concerns and priorities, and really like hold them together and notice what's changed, kind of like, doing a horizontal analysis, like here's what's changed, but here's what's the same. And these goals are still relevant to you. And so, we don't want to disrupt the work and the progress in that area that's still achieving that goal. And so just kind of helping them be a soundboard. It's a lot of money psychology, and there's a lot of books too that we can help to us communicate better, but also if our clients like to read, help them to learn something and maybe understand things from a different perspective. I think that also really helps, because you're not being their therapist and saying like, I'm going to protect you from you. You're like, here's a book to help you maybe learn a little bit more and have a different perspective from where you're at in this hard time right now. Because I don't want to say that you're not thinking clearly, but that happens to people when they go through divorce or loss.
You mentioned books, Grace. What books do you recommend?
I really love Psychology of Money. Housel, I think, I don't know if I said it right, but anyway, I love that book. I think that speaks to just a huge spectrum, like the whole spectrum of people. Of course, the Die with Zero, I think that that's really relevant for some people, right? But not everyone has the same priorities. So again, depends on the client and what they're trying to achieve. Because I work with a lot of women, there's a lot of them that have never been married, never had kids. That's I'd say that's a bigger demographic than I thought it would be, right? When I first got in this business. So they don't have the typical priorities that families do, but they also still want all that protection and not to be a burden on somebody, right? So there's a lot of similarities, but it's all about who that specific person is.
Right. Oh, Die with Zero is a phenomenal book, and The Psychology of Money is also a very great book. Both are on my Audible, and sometimes I go back to them just to give myself a refresher because of how powerful those books are. So if you have not checked those books out, I would highly encourage you to do so. Now, looking at the broader wealth transfer, Grace, firms may talk about serving the next generation, helping the rising generation. But in your view, like when we're looking down the line in that great wealth transfer, how can advisors design their client experience today to ensure women specifically feel seen, included, and empowered through every stage of their financial journey?
Yeah. When you're meeting with families and serving the next generation, or like if the kids have stepped in to help the parents or mom out with her finances, I think it's really important to speak to her. Like the kids are part of the audience, but you're not speaking to her son, you're speaking to her, right? About her accounts and, or him, right? This happened the other day where a client came in that I've known for several years and his brother-in-law is his caretaker now. But even though you can tell that like maybe doctors or the other professionals are speaking to the caretaker or the POA, like I'm speaking to that guy because he's my client and this is his account and his helper is there and listening to everything. But I think that's a nice way to show respect and that, it's their account, it's their money. They're still important and part of the equation. So talking to all the partners equally, if it's a husband and wife, like sharing the responsibility. Some of my clients have remarked, oh, he normally does all of the filling out of forms, but you handed them to me the first time. And so now she fills out all the forms. And she's like, we only do this with you. But she takes initiative and, is the one taking the pen and, starting basically. So I think just giving them, equal opportunity in the appointments.
We talk about that with the connection questionnaire when you have a husband and wife, that you are acknowledging both parties who are involved. And when we're talking about aging in place, aging with dignity, even if you have the legacy or the child or the beneficiaries there, you have to acknowledge your client because it's their money. And if you take away that respect, because that kind of I'll use my parents as an example. If I don't talk to my dad about his finances and I talk with my brother, my father gets very upset because it's his money. My mother wants to be a part of it as well. So we have to make sure that we talk with mom and dad about, this is what your plan is, this is what you said, and this is what we're doing. Are you okay with that? And when you don't do that, it causes disruption.
It causes trust and like feeling really secure that your family is being honest with you and doing things that you feel comfortable with. Even if it's their idea, it builds trust. And that's really important as part of the dignity and respect, of aging in place.
Right. And we're not a transactional business. We are all about the relationship and, making sure our clients retire happy and comfortable. So
Yeah.
Mike, you threw out a good book suggestion there that I've not read. So thank you for providing that. The Wealthy Gardener, Lessons on Prosperity Between Father to a Son. Sounds fascinating. So thank you for sharing that. I always appreciate your presence and your calm demeanor and how you present yourself. So any last thoughts you want to give everybody, Grace?
Well, thank you, Kirsten. I always enjoy talking to you too. And I just want to say that it's a pleasure to, be part of C2P, to have resources and resource with you and so many others, because I'm really passionate about serving women. And I'd say that since I've been with C2P, I've been able to get more micro focused on that, thanks to, resources and different marketing ideas and networking ideas. So just, if you're doing it now, keep going, because women are in a position to inherit a lot of the money, and to their kids. And if you're not, start with something. Start with getting the ladies in your office involved in some kind of initiative that is specific for women, and just kind of watch it. And it's going to be fun, right? And that's the element that I like that it brings, is it's something different and fun.
Thank you, Grace, for sharing it. You bring the fun. So thank you so much for sharing. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. Thank you for all that you do. And whatever you do today, make it a great day. Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to the Bucket Plan on Demand, brought to you by C2P, an organization whose purpose is to educate, train, grow, and support holistic financial advisors so families can achieve true prosperity. Subscribe today for the latest episodes and insights. Visit c2penterprises.com to learn how we can help support and enhance your advisory business. At the time of delivery and any subsequent publishing, information was deemed reliable but is subject to change by the time of listening or viewing. The contents of this piece include options and projections of C2P, are subject to change, and are for informational purposes only. The information provided in this presentation is not intended to be individual investment, tax, or legal advice.